Abigail Thornton's hands shook as she pressed the rag against the stranger's head wound, blood seeping through her fingers. Her 9-year-old son stood in the doorway, eyes wide with terror. "Mama, is he dead like Papa?" The words cut deeper than any winter wind. She'd sworn never to let another man into their lives, never to risk her heart again. But this man, bleeding, broken, barely breathing in her barn, he was dying. And God help her, she couldn't let him die. Not again. Not like Samuel. Before we begin, if you're drawn to stories of second chances and frontier courage, subscribe to this channel and stay with me until the end. Comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far our story travels across this great country. Now let's step back to that bitter winter day when everything changed. The Wyoming wind howled like a dying animal, rattling the loose boards of the Thornton cabin. April 1882 and winter still had its claws in Clearwater Valley. Abigail stood at the stove stirring a pot of watery potato soup, counting the days until she could make the journey to town. 15 days. That's all the bank had given her. 15 days to come up with $350 or lose everything Samuel had died trying to build. "Mama, the chickens ain't laid nothing again." Ben pushed through the door, snow crusting his coat. At 9 years old, her son moved like a man twice his age, shoulders squared against burdens no child should carry. "Isn't Benjamin? The chickens haven't laid anything." Abigail corrected gently, though her heart wasn't in it. Samuel had insisted their children speak properly even out here where education was scarce as summer rain. "Yes, ma'am." Ben shrugged off his coat, hanging it by the door with careful precision. "But they still haven't laid." Lucy looked up from the wooden horse she'd been playing with, her 6-year-old face pinched with worry. "Are we going to be hungry again tonight?" The question pierced Abigail like a knife between the ribs. "No, sweet girl, we've got soup." "But Mama, that's just water and... Benjamin." The single word carried warning enough. Her son's jaw clenched so like Samuel's when he was frustrated, but he nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Abigail turned back to the stove, blinking against the sting in her eyes. Crying solved nothing. She'd learned that the night Samuel died, coughing blood into her hands, while she screamed for help that never came. 8 months of consumption eating him alive, and all her education, all her careful nursing hadn't stopped it. Storm's getting worse. Ben moved to the window, breath fogging the glass. "Can't see the barn no more." "Can't see the barn anymore," Abigail corrected automatically, but her attention sharpened. "Did you secure the door properly?" "Yes, ma'am. But Mama, I heard something. In the barn, before I came in." Abigail's hands stilled on the spoon. "What kind of something?" "Like a horse. But we don't got but 2 horses, and they was both in their stalls." "Don't have but 2 horses, they were both in their stalls." "Mama?" Ben's voice dropped low, urgent. "I ain't making it up." Their eyes met across the small cabin. Abigail saw fear there, but also certainty. Her son didn't lie. Samuel had taught him that much before the consumption took him. "Stay here with your sister." Abigail reached for Samuel's old coat, heavy wool that still carried his scent if she breathed deep enough. "Keep the door barred." "Mama, no. I'll go." "You'll stay." She pulled on her boots, fingers fumbling with cold and something that might have been fear. "That's an order, Benjamin." "But Papa always said, 'Your Papa's dead.'" The words came out harsher than she intended. Lucy whimpered and Abigail softened her voice. "I'm sorry, baby. But right now I need you to be my brave boy and protect your sister. Can you do that?" Ben straightened one hand, moving to the kitchen knife on his belt. "Yes, ma'am." Abigail grabbed the rifle from above the door, checking the load with practiced efficiency. 2 shots. That's all she had left, until she could afford more ammunition. She'd been saving them for wolves, or worse. The wind hit her like a fist when she stepped outside. Snow stung her face, driven nearly horizontal by the gale. 20 feet to the barn, but it might as well have been 20 miles. She bent into the wind, one hand gripping the rope Samuel had strung from cabin to barn for exactly this reason. The barn door hung loose, banging in the wind. Abigail's heart sank. If the cows got out in this storm, they'd be dead by morning. If they died, her children would follow before spring. Easy now. She spoke to the darkness, rifle ready. I don't want trouble. A horse whinnied high and frightened, not one of hers. Abigail's finger tensed on the trigger as she moved deeper into the barn, following the sound. She found him collapsed in the hay, one hand still gripping his horse's reins. A big man, tall and broad-shouldered, face down in a spreading pool of blood. His horse stood over him, shivering eyes rolling white with fear. Dear God. The rifle lowered as Abigail moved forward, instinct overriding caution. She knelt beside him, pressing 2 fingers to his neck. A pulse fluttered there, weak but present. Blood matted his dark hair, seeping from a gash above his left temple. His skin was ice-cold, lips tinged blue. Hypothermia. She'd seen it before, back in Boston, before Samuel brought her west. This man had maybe an hour before the cold killed him. Maybe less. Abigail's hands shook as she made her decision. The smart thing would be to leave him. Bar the door, protect her children. Let nature take its course. Clearwater Valley wasn't kind to good Samaritans, especially widows. She'd learned that when Samuel died, and the town's sympathy lasted exactly as long as it took to lower him into the ground. But she could still feel Lucy's small hand on her father's frozen face, still hear her daughter's voice, asking why Papa wouldn't wake up. I can't. The words came out broken. Not again. She stood, mind racing through what she'd need. Blankets, hot water, bandages. Her hands steady enough, through Samuel's long dying, trembled now. Benjamin? Her voice barely carried over the wind. Benjamin, I need you. The cabin door flew open. Her son appeared, knife drawn, ready to defend his mother against whatever threat lurked in the dark. There's a man. He's hurt bad. I need your help getting him inside. Ben's eyes widened. Mama, we don't know him. He could be... He's dying. Abigail's voice went flat, brooking no argument. Just like your father died, and I won't... She stopped, swallowing hard. I need your help, Benjamin. Please. Her son hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. Yes, ma'am. Together they worked, Abigail taking the man's shoulders while Ben grabbed his boots. Dead weight heavier than anything she'd ever lifted. Her back screamed in protest as they dragged him through the snow, inch by agonizing inch. Mama, his horse, Ben called. Leave it. We'll come back. But the horse followed anyway, loyal even in terror, unwilling to abandon its master to the storm. Inside the cabin, Lucy stood frozen by the fire-wooden horse clutched to her chest. Mama, who is he? I don't know, baby. Help me get these blankets down. They laid him on the floor by the fire, as close to the heat as Abigail dared. She worked quickly, cutting away his coat with Samuel's old shears. Fine wool, well made, expensive. Beneath it, his shirt bore the marks of money-reel buttons, not wood stitching, that spoke of a tailor's hand, not a wife's mending. He's rich. Ben's voice held wonder and suspicion in equal measure. He's hurt. Abigail pressed a rag to the head wound, applying pressure. Lucy, I need hot water. The kettle on the stove. Her daughter moved to obey, small hands careful with the heavy pot. The wound was deep, but clean, like he'd struck his head on something hard and sharp. Abigail cleaned it with steady hands, muscle memory from Samuel's illness guiding her movements. Butterfly bandages closed the gash. Clean cotton bound it tight. His hands, Mama. Lucy pointed. Abigail looked. The man's fingers were white, bloodless. Frostbite setting in. She grabbed them, began rubbing circulation back, working each finger with desperate efficiency. Is he gonna die? Lucy asked, her voice small. The question hung in the air. Abigail looked at this stranger, this rich man with his fine clothes and expensive horse, lying helpless on her floor. She thought of Samuel of 8 months, watching him die by inches, while she tried everything, and it still wasn't enough. Not if I can help it. She worked through the night, changing cold rags for warm, checking his pulse, his breathing, the color returning slowly to his extremities. Ben dozed in the corner, knife still in hand. Lucy curled up by the fire, one hand reaching out to touch the stranger's arm, as if her small warmth might help. Near dawn, the man's eyes opened. Blue. Startling blue like summer sky over winter snow. They fixed on Abigail with confusion, then recognition of pain, then something else. Fear. Easy now. She kept her voice low, soothing. You're safe. You took a bad fall. Where? His voice came out rough, broken. My cabin, Clearwater Valley. I'm Abigail Thornton. You were in my barn, nearly frozen. His eyes moved around the small room, taking in the poverty, evident in every corner. The cracked window panes stuffed with rags, the threadbare curtains, the children sleeping in obvious hunger. Your children, he managed. Yes, Benjamin and Lucy. Husband. The question cut as it always did. Dead. 2 years now. Something flickered in those blue eyes. Understanding, maybe. Or pity. Abigail stiffened against both. What's your name? She asked. He hesitated, and in that hesitation, Abigail knew. This man was running from something, or someone. Nathaniel, he said finally. Nathaniel Cole. The name hit her like a physical blow. Cole, as in Cole Ranch, as in the richest spread in 3 counties, as in the man who owned half of Clearwater Valley and was rumored to want the other half. Her hands stilled on the bandage she'd been checking. The rancher. Yes? You're Nathaniel Cole. The Nathaniel Cole. Yes, ma'am. Abigail sat back on her heels, mind racing. This changed everything. The richest man in Wyoming bleeding on her floor. The same man Clayton Voss had warned her about 3 months ago when the banker came to call with his foreclosure notice and his false sympathy. Stay away from Cole. Voss had said, his soft hands folding the paperwork with careful precision. He's had his eye on your water rights for years. Man like that, he don't take no for an answer. Especially not from a woman alone. I need to leave. Nathaniel tried to sit up, gasped, fell back. Can't stay here. Not safe. You can't even stand. Abigail's voice came out sharp. What happened to you? His jaw clenched, and she saw the decision being made behind those blue eyes. Trust or lie. Horse threw me. Canyon trail. I was trying to... He stopped. Doesn't matter. I need to get back to my ranch. In this storm, you'd be dead before you made a mile. Better than... He cut himself off again. Abigail leaned forward close enough to see the fear in his eyes clearly now. Better than what, Mr. Cole? What are you running from? Before he could answer, a knock thundered on the door. Abigail's blood turned to ice. No one came calling during a storm. No one good anyway. Mrs. Thornton. A man's voice loud enough to carry over the wind. This is Sheriff Wade. Open up. Ben was awake in an instant, knife drawn. Lucy whimpered, pressing herself against the wall. Nathaniel grabbed Abigail's wrist, his grip surprisingly strong for a man who'd been at death's door moments before. Don't tell them I'm here. I don't lie to the law, Mr. Cole. I'm not asking you to lie. His blue eyes burned with intensity. I'm asking you to stay alive. If Clayton Voss knows I'm here. Mrs. Thornton. The sheriff pounded again. I can break this door down if I need to. Voss? Abigail's stomach dropped. What's he got to do with this? Everything. Nathaniel's voice went flat. He wants my land. Wants yours too, I'd reckon. And he don't mind killing to get it. The pieces clicked together in Abigail's mind with terrible clarity. Samuel's death, the foreclosure, The town's sudden coldness after her husband died, not random cruelty, orchestrated. Benjamin. She kept her voice steady. Help Mr. Cole into the back room. Cover him with everything we've got. Mama. Do it. Now. Her son moved, helping Nathaniel hobble into the small bedroom. Abigail smoothed her skirts, checked her reflection in the cracked mirror. Respectable widow. Nothing to hide. She opened the door. Sheriff Wade stood there, snow-covered, 3 deputies behind him. All of them armed. All of them looking past her into the cabin with hard eyes. Sheriff. Abigail kept her voice level. This is quite the hour for a social call. Ain't social, ma'am. Wade's mustache twitched. We're looking for Nathaniel Cole. His horse was spotted heading this direction before the storm hit. I haven't seen any horse but my own 2, Sheriff. And as you can see... She stepped aside, letting him view the small cabin. I'm alone with my children. Wade's eyes narrowed. You mind if we look around? I mind very much. It's 3 in the morning, my children are sleeping, and I don't take kindly to strange men in my house without cause. We got cause. Cole's wanted for questioning. Questioning about what? That's between us and him. Abigail crossed her arms, blocking the doorway with her body. Then I reckon you'll have to question him somewhere else, because he's not here and you're not coming in without a warrant. Wade's hand moved to his gun. Now, Mrs. Thornton, don't make this difficult. Difficult. Abigail's voice went cold. Difficult is raising 2 children alone. Difficult is watching your husband die coughing blood while the town doctor's too busy to come. Difficult is the bank foreclosing on land that's been paid for twice over. This is just me standing in my own doorway, sheriff exercising what few rights a widow's still got in this valley. Behind Wade, one of the deputies shifted uncomfortably. Young man couldn't be more than 20. She recognized him, Thomas Parker's boy, the one Lucy used to play with before Samuel died, and the town decided the Thornton family wasn't fit for association. You sure about this, Mrs. Thornton? Wade's voice dropped lower. Clayton Voss is offering $100 to anyone who brings Cole in. That's a lot of money for a woman in your position. My position? Abigail's laugh came out bitter. And what position is that, Sheriff? The position where I saved a dying man, and the whole town called me a whore. The position where my son gets beaten bloody for defending his mother's honor. That position. Wade's face reddened. Now that's not... Get off my property. Abigail's voice cut like a blade. Unless you've got a warrant, you've got no business here. And tell Clayton Voss that if he wants my land, he'll have to wait for the bank to take it legal. Because I won't be intimidated. Not by him. Not by you. Not by anyone. For a long moment, Wade just stared at her. Then he spit into the snow and turned away. Let's go, boys. Ain't nothing here but a stubborn woman and her brats. They mounted up and rode into the storm, leaving Abigail shaking in the doorway. She closed the door, barred it, then slid down to sit with her back against the wood. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling. Mama, Lucy crept out from her hiding place. Are they gone? They're gone, baby. Ben emerged from the bedroom, helping Nathaniel hobble back to the fire. The rancher's face had gone gray with pain and effort. You shouldn't have done that. Nathaniel collapsed by the hearth, breathing hard. Voss will know you lied for me. He'll make you pay. Let him try. Abigail stood squaring her shoulders. I'm already losing everything. What's one more enemy? Nathaniel looked at her with something like awe. You don't know what you've done. I know exactly what I've done. She moved to the window, watching the storm. Dawn was breaking, pale gray light seeping through the snow. I've made a choice. Same choice I made when I found you in my barn. I can't control what happens next, but I can control whether I'm the kind of person who leaves a man to die because it's convenient. Even if it costs you everything. Everything's already been taken, Mr. Cole. Abigail turned to face him. All I've got left is my conscience and my children, and I won't sacrifice either one." Silence fell, broken only by the crackling fire and the wind's howl. Lucy climbed into Abigail's lap, small and warm and trusting. Ben stood by the door, knife still ready, young face, old with responsibility. "Why does Mr. Voss want you dead?" Abigail asked finally. Nathaniel stared into the fire, jaw working. "Because I know what he did. To your husband. To a dozen other homesteaders who wouldn't sell. To anyone who stood between him and owning this whole valley." Ice flooded Abigail's veins. "What do you mean, what he did to Samuel?" "Your husband didn't die of consumption natural, Mrs. Thornton." Nathaniel's voice went flat. "He died because Voss paid the doctor to give him arsenic. Slow poison. Looks just like the consumption. By the time you knew something was wrong, it was too late." The world tilted. Abigail's arms tightened around Lucy, holding her daughter like an anchor against the rushing darkness. "No." The word came out broken. "No, Samuel was sick for months. The doctor said what Voss paid him to say." Nathaniel met her eyes. "I've got proof. Papers, records, names of every man Voss paid to clear obstacles, including your husband's name, including the date the doctor started the treatments that killed him." Abigail couldn't breathe. 8 months. 8 months she'd watched Samuel die, blamed herself for not being educated enough, skilled enough, devoted enough to save him. And it wasn't illness. It was murder. "Why?" Her voice came out barely a whisper. "Why would he do that? Water rights." Nathaniel gestured toward the window. "Your land sits on the creek that feeds half this valley. Voss wants to, damn it, control the water supply, force every ranch and farm to buy from him. But he can't do that as long as you own your property, so he had to get rid of you. Getting rid of your husband was the first step. And the foreclosure, second step. Force you into debt, buy your land at auction, make it all look legal." Abigail's mind raced, pieces falling into place. The sudden loan Samuel took out the month before he got sick. She'd never understood why their farm was doing fine. The town's cold shoulders after his death. The bank's impossible repayment terms. And you. She looked at Nathaniel. "Where do you fit in? I refused to sell my land to Voss. Told him I'd fight any attempt to control the water supply. Made myself a threat." He touched the bandage on his head. 3 of his men jumped me on the canyon trail. Beat me half to death. Would have finished the job if my horse hadn't thrown them and run. Last thing I remember before waking up here was thinking I'd die in that snow. But you didn't. No, ma'am. Thanks to you. Their eyes met across the firelight. Something passed between them. Recognition of shared pain, maybe, or understanding that their fates were now tangled together, whether they liked it or not. "What happens now?" Ben asked, his young voice cutting through the moment. Nathaniel looked at the boy, then at Abigail. Now we prove what Voss did. Bring him to justice. Get your land back. Make sure no one else suffers what you've suffered." Just like that. Abigail's laugh came out harsh. "You think the law will listen? Wade's on Voss's payroll. Half the town council, too, I'd wager. We've got no proof, no witnesses, no... We've got me." Nathaniel straightened, despite the obvious pain. "And I've got enough money and enough connections to make people listen. If you'll trust me." Trust. Abigail tasted the word. "I don't know you, Mr. Cole. For all I know, this is some elaborate scheme to get my land yourself. It's not? Prove it." Nathaniel was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his coat, the fine wool coat Abigail had cut away, and pulled out a leather wallet. From it, he extracted a folded paper yellowed with age. "My wife's last letter." He held it out. "Before she died, she made me promise I'd live right, help people, not let grief turn me into the kind of man who values land more than human life." His voice roughened. "I've failed that promise more days than not these past 4 years. But I'm trying, And saving you, saving your children, that's part of keeping my word to her. Abigail took the letter, unfolded it with careful hands. The handwriting was elegant feminine, each word formed with obvious love. My dearest Nathaniel, if you're reading this, I'm gone. So is our daughter. And you're alone. I know you. You'll blame yourself. You'll build walls so high nothing can touch you. Please don't. The world needs men like you. Men who care, who fight for what's right, who protect the weak. Promise me you'll be that man. Promise me you'll live. All my love always. Margaret Abigail's throat closed. She folded the letter, carefully handed it back. I'm sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry for yours. Nathaniel tucked the letter away. But Mrs. Thornton Abigail, we can turn grief into something good. We can stop Voss. We can make sure Samuel's death means something. How? The question came out desperate. I've got 15 days before the bank takes everything. No money, no way to fight. You've got me. Nathaniel's blue eyes held hers. My money, my lawyers, my ranch hands. Everything I've got I'll use to help you. Not because I want your land, because it's the right thing to do. Why should I believe you? Because I'm still here. He gestured to the cabin around them. I could have left at dawn, snuck away before anyone knew. But I'm here, and I'm telling you the truth, even though it puts me in more danger, because that's what Margaret would want. It's what your Samuel would want, and it's what we both need to do to sleep at night again. Abigail looked at her children. Ben standing guard with a knife meant for cutting vegetables. Lucy, thumb and mouth, eyes wide with confusion at the adult world crashing into her childhood. 2 lives depending on her choices. She thought of Samuel dying slowly in her arms, convinced it was just bad luck. She thought of 8 months of grief, blamed herself for not saving him. She thought of 2 years scraping by the town's judgment, the coming foreclosure. Then she thought of Margaret Cole's letter. Promise me you'll live. All right. The decision settled into her bones like truth. I'll trust you. But Mr. Cole, if you betray that trust, if you hurt my children, I won't. He extended his hand. You have my word. Abigail took it. His grip was strong, warm, alive. Not like Samuel's at the end. Not cold and failing. Partners, then. She said it firm. Partners. Outside, the storm began to break. Dawn light spilled through the windows, turning the snow to gold. A new day. A new chance. The beginning of something neither of them could have predicted. And somewhere in Clearwater Valley, Clayton Voss was waking up, reaching for his coffee, planning his next move. The game had changed. He just didn't know it yet. The snow melted fast that week, turning roads to mud and secrets to whispers. Nathaniel stayed in the Thornton cabin, healing slow but steady, while Abigail watched the town through her window and waited for the hammer to fall. It came on Sunday. Mama, there's people coming. Ben stood at the window, his whole body tense. Lots of people. Abigail's hands stilled on the bread dough she'd been kneading. How many? 1, 10, maybe more. They got the preacher with them. Her stomach dropped. A delegation. That meant official business. That meant trouble dressed up in Sunday clothes and righteous indignation. Nathaniel appeared in the bedroom doorway, shirt half buttoned, moving better than he had 3 days ago, but still favoring his left side. I should go. You should stay put. Abigail wiped flour from her hands. Lucy, take your brother to the loft. Don't come down no matter what you hear. Mama. Now, Benjamin. Her son's jaw set stubborn, but he obeyed, herding Lucy up the ladder to the sleeping loft. Abigail watched them disappear into the shadows before turning to Nathaniel. Get back in that bedroom. Don't show yourself unless I call. I won't hide while you face them alone. You will if you want to stay alive long enough to help me fight Voss. She met his eyes. This is my home, Mr. Cole, my battle. Let me handle it my way. He hesitated, then nodded once. Call if you need me. The knock came hard and formal. Abigail smoothed her skirts, checked her reflection in the cracked mirror. Respectable widow. Nothing to hide. She opened the door. Reverend Marcus Webb stood at the front of the group Bible, clutched in his weathered hands. Behind him, a dozen townspeople, shopkeepers, farmers, the mayor's wife in her fancy hat. All of them looking at Abigail like she'd grown horns. "Mrs. Thornton," the Reverend's voice carried across the yard. "We need to speak with you. About a matter of grave importance." "Reverend Webb." Abigail kept her voice steady. "This is quite the crowd for a Sunday afternoon. The Lord's work sometimes requires witnesses." He gestured to the assembled crowd. "May we come in? I'd rather you state your business from where you stand. My home's small, and I don't have seating for so many visitors." Martha Hayes stepped forward, the mayor's wife, dripping judgment from every pore. "Don't play coy, Abigail Thornton. The whole town knows what you've done." "And what exactly have I done, Mrs. Hayes?" "Harbored a man without benefit of marriage. Brought scandal to this Christian community. Set a wicked example for your children." Martha's voice rose with each accusation. "You've shamed yourself and dishonored your husband's memory." The words hit like fists, but Abigail didn't flinch. "I saved a dying man from freezing. That's called Christian charity, Mrs. Hayes. Perhaps you've heard of it. Christian charity doesn't involve a man sleeping under your roof for days on end." This from Robert Klein, who owned the general store. "My wife won't even speak your name anymore. Says it's indecent." "Then your wife has a short memory, Mr. Klein." Abigail's voice went cold. "Because I recall nursing her through childbed fever 3 years ago when the doctor was too drunk to come. Spent 2 nights in her home under her roof saving her life. Nobody called that indecent." Klein's face reddened, but he didn't back down. "That was different. You was helping a woman. So it's only indecent when I save a man. Is that how Christian charity works now?" "Don't twist words, Mrs. Thornton." Reverend Webb raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "The issue isn't that you helped someone. It's that you've kept him here, for days, without proper supervision, without consideration for appearances." Appearances. Abigail tasted the word like poison. "My husband died 2 years ago, Reverend. I watched him cough blood for 8 months while this town looked the other way. Where were appearances then? Where was Christian charity when the doctor was too busy to come? When the bank started calling in loans? When my children went hungry because nobody would hire a widow for fear of gossip? That's not fair." "Fair." Abigail's laugh came out harsh. "You want to talk about fair? I'm 15 days from losing everything Samuel built, 15 days from being homeless with 2 children, and you're here worrying about appearances." "We're here worrying about your soul." Webb's voice softened. "And your children's welfare. A woman alone harboring strange men, it sets a bad example. The church elders have discussed it. We think it would be best if Benjamin and Lucy were placed with proper families, families who can provide moral guidance." The world tilted. Abigail grabbed the doorframe to steady herself. "You want to take my children. We want what's best for them." Martha Hayes stepped forward, her face arranged in false sympathy. "You're clearly not in a position to care for them properly. And now with this scandal." "There is no scandal." Abigail's voice shook. "I saved a man's life. That's all." "Is he still here?" Klein looked past her into the cabin. "This mysterious stranger. That's none of your concern." "So he is." Martha's eyes gleamed with triumph. "Living in sin under the same roof with innocent children present. Reverend, surely you see. I see a woman who's been through hell and is still standing." The voice came from behind Abigail, deep and steady. Nathaniel stepped into the doorway, shirt buttoned, now standing close enough that his presence announced itself as protection. The crowd went silent, staring. "Nathaniel Cole." Webb's eyes widened. "Sheriff Wade's been looking for you." "I reckon he has." Nathaniel's hand moved to rest on the doorframe just above Abigail's shoulder. Not touching, but claiming space. "But he won't find me breaking any laws. Mrs. Thornton saved my life when I was half frozen and bleeding in her barn. She nursed me back to health, asked nothing in return. That's not scandal, Reverend. That's the kind of Christian charity your Bible preaches about. The circumstances are highly irregular. The circumstances are simple. Nathaniel's voice hardened. I was dying. She helped. And now you people want to punish her for it. That about sum it up. Martha Hayes drew herself up. Mr. Cole, we understand you come from a certain background, but in civilized society there are rules, proprieties. A woman alone with a man. A woman alone with a dying man she was trying to save. Nathaniel corrected. There's a difference, ma'am. Though I'm not surprised a woman who's never done a day's hard labor in her life wouldn't see it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Martha's face went purple. How dare you? How dare I speak the truth? Nathaniel stepped fully into the doorway, now his size making the crowd shift back instinctively. Mrs. Thornton's worked herself near to death keeping her family alive. She's got more strength and decency in her little finger than this whole crowd combined. And you want to take her children for what saving a life? The appearance of impropriety. To hell with appearances. The words cracked like a whip. I'm Nathaniel Cole. I own 5,000 acres and employ half this town one way or another. My father helped build this valley. And I'm telling you right now, anyone who tries to take those children will answer to me. The silence that followed was absolute. Reverend Webb found his voice first. Mr. Cole, we appreciate your defense, but the church elders can mind their own business. Nathaniel's voice went deadly quiet. Because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to ride into town tomorrow. I'm going to speak with Judge Morrison, and I'm going to make sure that any attempt to remove Benjamin or Lucy Thornton from their mother's care gets thrown out before it sees daylight. On what grounds? Martha demanded. On the grounds that I'm a material witness to Mrs. Thornton's character. On the grounds that I'll testify she saved my life with nothing but skill and Christian charity. And on the grounds that I've got enough money and influence in this territory to make life very difficult for anyone who persecutes a widow for doing the right thing. Klein stepped forward face hard. That sounds awful like a threat, Cole. It's a promise. Nathaniel's eyes swept the crowd. I'm grateful to Mrs. Thornton, grateful enough to make sure nobody in this town forgets what real Christian charity looks like, even if I have to buy every business in Clearwater Valley and remind you all personally. The crowd shifted uncertain now. Nathaniel Cole wasn't just rich, he was powerful, and he was drawing a line in the dirt. Webb cleared his throat. Perhaps we've been hasty. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Reverend. Abigail found her voice stronger now, with Nathaniel standing beside her. You came here to take my children because I saved a man's life. Because I refused to let another person die on my watch. If that's what Christian charity gets you in this town, then I want no part of your church. Mrs. Thornton, get off my property. She straightened her shoulders. All of you. And don't come back unless you're ready to apologize. The crowd dispersed slowly, muttering, casting glances back at the cabin. Only Reverend Webb remained, his face troubled. I'm sorry, Abigail. His voice dropped low. Truly. But you have to understand, Voss has been making donations to the church, large ones. He suggested that perhaps your situation needed intervention. Voss. The name fell between them like a stone. This was his idea. Webb nodded slowly. He's got most of the town council in his pocket. The elders, too. I tried to argue against it, but... He trailed off, helpless. Thank you for trying, Reverend. Abigail's anger drained away, leaving only exhaustion. But I think you should go now. After he left, Abigail closed the door and leaned against it, shaking. Nathaniel's hand touched her shoulder, gentle. You all right? They wanted to take my children. Her voice broke. They wanted to take Ben and Lucy because I saved your life. They won't. I promise you that. Your promises don't mean much against Voss's money. Maybe not. But my money means something, and I'm going to use every cent of it to keep you safe." Abigail turned to face him. In the dim cabin light, his blue eyes held determination and something else. Something that made her heart beat faster despite everything. "Why?" The question came out barely a whisper. "Why do you care so much?" Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. "Because Margaret made me promise to be better. And because when I look at you fighting for your children, refusing to back down, I see the kind of strength I lost when she died. The kind of courage that makes a man want to be worthy of it." The air between them shifted, charged with something neither was ready to name. "Mr. Cole, Nathaniel. Just Nathaniel." Nathaniel! The name felt strange on her tongue. "This is dangerous. For both of us. Voss won't stop." "I know. He killed my husband." "I know that too. And you're still here." "I'm still here." Lucy's small voice floated down from the loft. "Mama, is it safe?" The moment broke. Abigail stepped back, putting proper distance between them. "It's safe, baby. Come down." Her children descended, Ben first with his knife, Lucy clutching her wooden horse. They looked at Nathaniel with new eyes, seeing him not as a stranger anymore, but as something else. Protector, maybe. Or ally. "Are they going to take us away?" Lucy asked, thumb creeping toward her mouth. "No, sweetheart." Abigail knelt, pulling her daughter close. "Nobody's taking you anywhere. I promise." "Mr. Nathaniel won't let them." Lucy stated it as fact with the absolute certainty of childhood. Abigail looked up at the man standing in her cabin, this stranger who'd stumbled into her life 5 days ago and turned everything upside down. "No, he won't." Their eyes met over Lucy's head, and something passed between them that felt dangerously like trust. That night, after the children slept, Abigail and Nathaniel sat by the fire, speaking in low voices about plans and possibilities. "I'll ride to my ranch tomorrow." Nathaniel poked at the coals with a stick. "Get my men my lawyers. Come back with enough force that Voss thinks twice about moving against you." "That could take days, maybe weeks. Can you hold out that long?" Abigail thought of the foreclosure notice, the empty larder, the town's hostile eyes. "I don't know." "Then come with me, you and the children. Stay at my ranch where it's safe. And prove every nasty thing this town believes about me." "No, thank you." "Abigail." "No." She cut him off. "I won't run. This is my home. Samuel's buried here. I won't abandon it." Nathaniel studied her in the firelight. "You're the stubbornest woman I've ever met. And you're the stubbornest man. We should get along fine." A smile tugged at his mouth, the first real one she'd seen. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less haunted. Abigail felt something flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with gratitude. "What happens after?" she asked. "After we stop Voss? After the foreclosure? What then?" "Then you keep your land, raise your children, live your life." "And you?" "I go back to my ranch, back to being alone." He said it matter of fact, but something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe. That's a lonely way to live. It's safe. Can't lose what you don't have. Abigail understood that logic. She'd lived by it herself for 2 years. But sitting here in the firelight with this man who'd stood up for her against a whole town, the loneliness of it suddenly seemed unbearable. "Margaret wouldn't want you living like that." She said it soft, careful. "Margaret's dead." The words came out flat, final. "What she wanted doesn't matter anymore. It matters to you. That's why you keep her letter. Why you're here helping me instead of hiding safe at your ranch." Nathaniel's jaw clenched. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Tell you the truth. Don't make this about something it's not. I'm helping you because it's right, that's all." "Is it?" Abigail leaned forward. "Or is it because when you look at me and my children, you see what you lost? The family you never got to have?" Stop. Why? Because it hurts. Because admitting you care about something besides land and cattle makes you feel vulnerable. Because I can't. The words burst out of him raw and desperate. I can't care about you. Any of you. Because everyone I've ever loved has died, and I won't. I can't. He stopped breathing hard. The careful control shattered. Abigail's throat tightened. I'm not asking you to love us, Nathaniel. I'm just asking you to stop punishing yourself for surviving. You don't understand. I understand better than you think. I watched Samuel die for 8 months. Blamed myself every single day for not being enough to save him. And when Voss's men came with that foreclosure notice, part of me was grateful, because losing everything felt like the punishment I deserved for failing. Nathaniel's eyes met hers wide with recognition. But then I found you in my barn. Abigail continued, half dead, bleeding, barely breathing. And I realized I had a choice. Let you die and prove I really was as worthless as I felt. Or save you and prove that maybe, just maybe, I was stronger than my grief. You saved me. I saved myself, she corrected gently, by choosing to be the kind of person who doesn't give up on others or on myself. And I think you need to make that same choice. Silence fell between them, thick with unspoken things. Finally, Nathaniel spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can. Then start small. Help me save my farm. Protect my children. Be the man Margaret believed you could be. The rest will come. And if it doesn't, then at least you'll have tried. That's more than most people do. Nathaniel stared into the fire for a long time. When he finally looked up, something in his face had shifted. Not healed, not fixed, but open. Like a door that had been locked for years was finally cracking. All right. He said it quiet, but firm. I'll try. Abigail felt something settle in her chest. Not love, not yet, but the beginning of it. The possibility. Good. She stood, brushing off her skirts. Now get some sleep. You're riding to your ranch at dawn, and you'll need your strength. You're not coming. Someone needs to hold down the fort here. Make sure Voss doesn't burn it down while you're gone. Abigail, I'll be fine. Ben's got his knife and I've got Samuel's rifle. We've survived worse. Not with Voss actively gunning for you. Then you better ride fast and come back faster. Nathaniel stood, moving close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. I will come back. That's a promise. I'll hold you to it. For a moment, they stood there, close enough to touch, neither quite brave enough to close the distance. Then Nathaniel stepped back, proper distance restored. Good night, Mrs. Thornton. Good night, Mr. Cole. But the formality felt like a lie now. They both knew it. Morning came cold and clear, the last of the snow melting into mud. Nathaniel saddled his horse, a fine bay stallion that had waited patiently in Abigail's barn all week, and prepared to leave. Ben stood watching, arms crossed, face set in that too old expression. You gonna come back? I gave my word. Nathaniel checked his saddle, then crouched to meet the boy's eyes. And a man's word is all he's got worth having. Papa used to say that. Your papa was a smart man. Mama says Mr. Voss killed him, poisoned him, so it looked like the consumption. Nathaniel went still. She told you. I heard you talking last night. I wasn't snooping. Just couldn't sleep. Ben's voice stayed steady, but his hands clenched into fists. Is it true? It's true. Then I'm going to kill him. The boy said it flat certain. When I'm big enough, I'm going to make him pay for what he'd done to Papa. Benjamin, don't tell me revenge is wrong. Don't tell me to forgive. I won't. Nathaniel recognized the rage in those young eyes. He'd seen it in his own mirror after Margaret died. I won't tell you it's wrong to be angry. Your father deserved better. You all did. But killing Voss won't bring him back. Then what will? Nothing. Nathaniel said it honest. He's gone, and that's a wound that won't heal. But you know, what would honor his memory. Protecting your mother and sister, being the kind of man your father would be proud of, that takes more courage than revenge. Ben's jaw worked, fighting tears. I miss him. I know. I miss my wife too. And my daughter. Missing doesn't stop. But it gets easier. Especially if you've got people worth living for. The boy nodded slowly, then stuck out his hand. You come back, Mr. Cole. Mama needs you. Nathaniel shook it solemn. I'll come back. Abigail appeared with Lucy, both wrapped in shawls against the morning chill. She handed Nathaniel a bundle. Food for the road, bread and dried meat. It's not much, but it's perfect. He took it, their fingers brushing. The contact sparked something neither acknowledged. I'll be back in 3 days, 4 at most. We'll be here. Keep the rifle loaded. Don't open the door for anyone you don't trust. I've been surviving on my own for 2 years, Nathaniel. I think I can manage a few more days. I know you can. His voice dropped lower. But I'd feel better knowing you were safe. Then ride fast. Lucy tugged on Nathaniel's coat. You're coming back right. You promised. He knelt, bringing himself to her level. I always keep my promises, little one. Good. She threw her arms around his neck, fierce and sudden. Because Mama smiles when you're here, she didn't smile before. Nathaniel's arms came up automatically, holding this child who'd somehow slipped past his defenses. Over her head he met Abigail's eyes. She was crying silently, tears tracking down her cheeks. He stood still, holding Lucy, and handed her gently to her mother. 3 days. 3 days, Abigail repeated. Nathaniel mounted up the horse, dancing sideways, eager to run. He looked down at this small, fierce family standing in front of a cabin that needed repairs and a future that hung by a thread. And he made a decision that terrified him. When I come back, he stopped, gathering courage. When I come back, we need to talk. About something more permanent than just fighting Voss. Abigail's breath caught. What do you mean? I mean... He paused, then said it straight. I mean, maybe Margaret was right. Maybe I've been dead long enough. Maybe it's time to try living again. Nathaniel. 3 days. He cut her off before he lost his nerve. We'll talk then. He wheeled the horse and kicked it into a gallop, riding hard for the trail that would take him home. Not looking back, because if he did, he might not leave at all. Behind him, Abigail stood with her children, watching until he disappeared over the ridge. Her hand pressed against her chest, trying to calm the wild beating of her heart. Mama, Ben's voice was careful. Do you love him? She should say no. Should protect herself and her children from the possibility of more loss. Should remember Samuel and the promises she'd made at his grave. But standing there in the spring mud with the sun breaking through clouds, she found she couldn't lie. I don't know yet. She said it honest. But I think I might could, given time. Papa would understand. Lucy stated with childhood certainty. He'd want you happy. Would he, Abigail wondered? Or would he feel betrayed by how quickly she'd let another man into their lives? But Samuel was gone, and Nathaniel Cole was alive. And somewhere in between grief and hope, Abigail was learning to breathe again. The three of them walked back to the cabin, unaware of the rider watching from the tree line. One of Voss's men paid to report Cole's movements. He'd seen enough. The rich rancher sweet on the widow. Perfect leverage. He turned his horse toward town, already composing the message he'd deliver to his boss. The pieces were all moving now, and Clayton Voss was about to make his play. Voss came himself the next morning. Abigail was in the garden turning soil for spring planting when she heard the horse. She straightened one hand, shading her eyes against the sun, the other reaching instinctively for the rifle she'd leaned against the fence post. Clayton Voss sat astride a black gelding, dressed in a fine suit despite the mud. 52 years old, soft around the middle from good living, but his eyes were sharp as a hawk's. Behind him rode 2 men, ranch hands by the look of them, both armed. Mrs. Thornton? Voss tipped his hat, all politeness. Lovely morning. Mr. Voss. Abigail didn't move toward him. You're on private property. I'm aware. Thought we might have a conversation. Neighborly-like. We're not neighbors, and we've got nothing to discuss. Now that's where you're wrong. He dismounted slowly, leaving his men on horseback. See, I heard Nathaniel Cole's been staying here. That true, Abigail's grip tightened on the rifle. What I do on my own land is my business. Normally I'd agree, but Cole's wanted for questioning by the sheriff, harboring a fugitive that's serious business, Mrs. Thornton. He's not a fugitive. He's an innocent man your hired thugs tried to kill. Voss's smile never wavered. Now those are serious accusations. You got proof. I've got a man who was beaten half to death on a public road. That's proof enough. Could have been an accident. Horse threw him, maybe. Canyon trails are dangerous this time of year. With 3 sets of boot prints around him, try again, Mr. Voss. The banker's expression hardened slightly. You're playing a dangerous game, widow. Dangerous for you and those children of yours. Ice flooded Abigail's veins, but she kept her voice steady. Are you threatening me? I'm offering advice, as a concerned citizen. He stepped closer, and Abigail raised the rifle slightly. Voss stopped, hands raised in mock surrender. Easy now. I'm not here to cause trouble. Then state your business and leave. My business is simple. I'm prepared to make you an offer on this land. Fair market value. $300. That's more than enough to pay off your debt and start fresh somewhere else. This land's worth twice that, and you know it. Maybe. But it's not worth much if you can't hold on to it. Foreclosure's in 10 days now, and I hear the town's not so friendly anymore. Church wants to take your children. Store won't sell to you. Hard to make a living when everyone's turned against you. Because you poisoned them against me. I simply expressed concerns. As a pillar of the community. Voss's smile was a wolf's grin. But I'm not heartless, Mrs. Thornton. I understand you're in a difficult position, so I'm offering you a way out. Take the money, leave Clearwater Valley, start over somewhere fresh. And if I refuse, then the bank takes everything in 10 days. You get nothing. Your children end up in orphanages or with families who'll work them like slaves. And you, well, a woman alone with your reputation ruined, I can't imagine your prospects are good. Abigail's finger moved to the trigger. Get off my land. Think about my offer. You've got until Friday to decide. Voss remounted his horse, easy as you please. And Mrs. Thornton Cole won't come back for you. Men like him don't risk everything for broken-down widows with bastard children and debts they can't pay. The words hit like fists, but Abigail didn't flinch. He'll come back. Will he? Or did he just see an opportunity to tumble a desperate woman and move on? Voss's voice dropped lower, uglier. You're not special, widow. You're just convenient. And when he's done with you, you'll still be here, alone, ruined, with nothing. Get out. Friday, Mrs. Thornton. Think hard. He wheeled his horse, his men following. Before he rode off, he called back one last time. And tell Cole when you see him again, if you see him, that I always finish what I start. Always. They thundered away, leaving Abigail shaking in her garden. She waited until they were out of sight before her knees buckled. She sat hard in the dirt, the rifle clattering beside her, and pressed her hands over her mouth to muffle the sobs that wanted to escape. Mama! Ben appeared from the cabin, knife in hand. You all right? She couldn't answer. Couldn't breathe past the fear choking her. Her son dropped to his knees beside her, small hands gripping her shoulders. Mama, you're scaring me. I'm all right. The words came out broken. I'm all right. But she wasn't. She was terrified, because Voss's words had found the fear she'd been hiding from herself. What if Nathaniel didn't come back? What if he'd used her, played on her loneliness and desperation, and now he was gone? What if everything he'd said was lies, designed to get her to trust him so he could take her land himself? He'll come back. Ben said it fierce, like he could will it true. Mr. Cole promised. Promises don't mean much in this world, Benjamin. Papa's promises did, and Mr. Cole's will too. I know it. Abigail wanted to believe him, wanted to hold on to that childhood certainty that good people kept their word. But she was 34 years old, twice widowed, if you counted being abandoned, and she knew better. Still, she pulled herself together, wiped her eyes, stood up and brushed dirt from her skirts. "You're right." She said it for Ben's sake, not because she believed it. He'll come back. But that night, lying alone in her bed, listening to her children breathe in the loft above, doubt crept in like winter cold. 3 days, Nathaniel had said. It had been 1. 2 more to go. 2 more days of wondering if she'd been a fool to trust him. She reached under her pillow, pulling out Samuel's last letter. The one he'd written 2 weeks before he died, when the consumption was eating him alive. But his mind was still clear. "My dearest Abby, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. Sorry I can't give you more time, more security, more of everything you deserve. But I need you to know you're stronger than you think. Strong enough to raise our children alone. Strong enough to keep the farm. Strong enough to love again when the time comes. Don't let grief make you small. Don't let fear keep you from living. Promise me you'll be brave enough to take chances, to trust again, to let someone in. All my love." Samuel. Abigail traced the words with shaking fingers. Samuel had believed in her, believed she could survive anything. But he hadn't known about the poison, hadn't known his death was murder, not illness. Would he still think her strong if he knew she'd failed to save him? Failed to see what was happening right under her nose. Sleep came in pieces that night, fractured by dreams of Samuel dying, and Nathaniel riding away, and her children being torn from her arms by townspeople with pitchforks and righteous fury. She woke to Lucy screaming. Abigail was out of bed and up the loft ladder before conscious thought registered. Lucy sat bolt upright, eyes wide and unseeing, screaming for her papa. "Baby, I'm here." Abigail gathered her daughter close, rocking her. "You're safe. It was just a dream." "Papa was cold," Lucy sobbed against her mother's chest. "So cold, and I couldn't make him warm. I tried and tried, but he stayed cold." "I know, sweetheart. I know." Ben sat up in his bedroll, face pale in the moonlight filtering through the loft window. "She dreaming about Papa again?" "Yes. She hasn't done that in months." Her son's voice was quiet. "Not since Mr. Cole came." The observation landed heavy. Lucy had been sleeping through the night for the first time in 2 years. And now, with Nathaniel gone, the nightmares were back. Abigail held her daughter until the sobs subsided into hiccups. Then silence, then the deep breathing of exhausted sleep. She carried Lucy back to her bedroll, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. "Mama." Ben's whisper was barely audible. "What if Mr. Voss is right? What if Mr. Cole don't come back? Doesn't come back? Mama." Abigail sat beside her son, smoothing his hair back from his forehead, the way she used to when he was small. "I don't know, Benjamin. I honestly don't know." "You think he lied to us?" "I think—" She paused, choosing words carefully. "I think he meant what he said when he said it. But meaning something and doing it are different things. Life gets complicated. Plans change. People change their minds." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I've got, baby." She kissed his forehead, too. "Now sleep. We've got work tomorrow." But she couldn't sleep herself. She climbed back down the ladder and sat by the dying fire, Samuel's letter in one hand and her wedding ring in the other. 2 symbols of faith she'd placed in a man who died anyway. Was she doing it again? Trusting too easily? Believing pretty words from a stranger who'd stumbled into her life at her weakest moment? Dawn came gray and cold, promising rain. Abigail made breakfast from their dwindling supplies, thin porridge, no sugar or milk to sweeten it. The children ate without complaint, used to hunger by now. I'm going to town today. She announced it sudden, the decision made somewhere in the sleepless hours. We need flour and salt, maybe some dried beans if Klein will sell to me. Mama, Mr. Cole said. Mr. Cole isn't here. The words came out sharper than she intended. And we can't sit in this cabin waiting for rescue. We've got to keep living. Ben's face shuttered closed, hurt flashing across it before he hit it. Yes, ma'am. Guilt twisted in Abigail's chest, but she pushed it down. She hitched up the wagon, loaded the egg basket, and 2 jars of preserves she'd been saving. Maybe Klein wouldn't sell to her directly, but surely someone in town would trade. You two stay inside. Bar the door. Don't open it for anyone. Not even Mr. Cole, Lucy asked hopeful. Mr. Cole won't be back for 2 more days. If he comes back at all, she didn't add. So, no, not even him. The ride to Clearwater took an hour through muddy roads. Spring rain had started cold and steady, soaking through Abigail's shawl. By the time she reached town, she was shivering. Main Street was busier than usual for a Tuesday morning. Farmers bringing in supplies, ranchers conducting business at the bank. Abigail drove straight to Klein's general store, tying off the wagon with hands that shook from more than cold. The store went silent when she walked in. Klein stood behind the counter, arms crossed, face hard. 3 customers, all women Abigail knew from church, turned to stare. Nobody spoke. Mr. Klein? Abigail kept her voice steady. I've got eggs and preserves to trade. Need flour and salt. Stores closed to you, Mrs. Thornton. The sign says open. To decent folk, not to women who bring shame on this town. Heat flooded Abigail's face, but she held her ground. I'm a paying customer with goods to trade. You can't refuse service. Watch me. Klein's voice was flat. Get out. Robert, please. The words cost her pride, but her children needed food. I've got money, real money. Not much, but enough for flour and salt. My children are hungry. Should have thought of that before you spread your legs for Nathaniel Cole. The slap cracked across the store like thunder. Abigail's hand stung from the impact, Klein's face going red where she'd struck him. Don't you ever... Her voice shook with rage. Don't you dare speak about me like that. I saved a dying man. Nothing more. And if your mind's so filthy that you can't imagine a woman helping someone without sin involved, that says more about you than me. Klein's hand went to his cheek, shock replacing anger. You just assaulted me. You slandered me first, in front of witnesses. Abigail looked at the 3 women who were staring with wide eyes. You all heard him, heard what he called me, heard the lies he spread. Martha Hayes found her voice first. It's not slander if it's true. It's not true. Abigail's voice cracked. I'm a widow trying to survive. I saved a man's life, that's all. Why is that so hard to believe? Because Cole's still here. This from Sarah Webb, the Reverend's wife. Or he was until yesterday. A man doesn't stay under a woman's roof for days unless something improper's happening. He was recovering from being beaten and left to die. What was I supposed to do? Throw him back in the snow. You were supposed to send for proper help. The doctor, the sheriff, someone. The doctor who killed my husband. The words burst out before Abigail could stop them. The sheriff who's on Voss's payroll. Those are the people you wanted me to trust. Silence fell, shocked and absolute. Klein's eyes narrowed. What did you say about Doc Morrison? Abigail realized she'd said too much, but it was too late to take it back. Nothing. Forget it. No. You said he killed your husband. That's a serious accusation, Mrs. Thornton. Samuel died of consumption. Everyone knows that. But you just said... I said nothing. Abigail grabbed her basket and jars, backing toward the door. I'll take my business elsewhere. There is nowhere else. Klein's voice followed her. Every store in this valley will turn you away. Voss made sure of that. Abigail fled into the rain, tears mixing with the drops soaking her face. She stood beside her wagon, shaking basket clutched to her chest. No food. No way to get it. Her children would go hungry tonight. Tomorrow. The day after. Mrs. Thornton. A soft voice made her turn. Rose McCarty stood there, rain dripping from her bonnet. 55-years-old owner of the small dry goods shop on the edge of town. A widow herself, though her husband had left her the business when he died. Mrs. McCarty? Abigail wiped at her eyes, trying to compose herself. I'm all right. No, you're not. Rose glanced back at Klein's store, then at Abigail. Come with me, quick before anyone sees. She led Abigail around the corner to her shop, unlocking the door and ushering her inside. The interior was warm, dry, smelling of tea and spices and safety. Sit. Rose pushed Abigail into a chair by the small stove. I'll make tea. Mrs. McCarty, I can't. You can, and you will. The older woman moved with brisk efficiency, setting a kettle to boil. And you'll call me Rose like you used to before this town went mad. Abigail sat numb and shaking. Rose pressed a cup of hot tea into her hands, then sat across from her. Now, tell me what's really happening. No lies, no pride, just truth. And God help her, Abigail did. It all came pouring out, finding Nathaniel, saving him, the threats from Voss, the revelation about Samuel's murder, the foreclosure, the town's hatred, her children's terror, her own doubts about whether Nathaniel would return. Rose listened without interruption, her lined face growing grimmer with each revelation. That bastard! She said it quiet when Abigail finished. Clayton Voss is a murdering bastard, and I've known it for years. Abigail looked up, startled. You knew. Suspected. My husband died 5 years ago. Same symptoms as Samuel. Consumption, the doctor said, but James was healthy as a horse, 1 month dead the next. Never sat right with me. Rose's hands clenched around her own teacup. And afterward, Voss tried to buy my shop. Offered pennies on the dollar. When I refused, strange things started happening. Shipments lost. Customers scared away. I almost went under. What stopped him? I sold a piece of land I owned north of here. Land Voss wanted. Sold it to Nathaniel Cole instead for twice what Voss offered. That got his attention off me right quick. So Cole's been fighting Voss for years. Fighting and winning mostly. Cole's got money and influence Voss can't match. That's why Voss wants him dead. With Cole gone, nobody's strong enough to stand against him. Abigail's mind raced, pieces falling into place. So if Nathaniel and I, if you two joined forces, married, maybe. Rose's eyes were sharp. You'd have Cole's money and protection, your water rights combined with his land. You'd be untouchable, and Voss would lose everything he's been working toward. I can't marry him just for protection. Can't you women have married for less out here? For land, for survival, for their children's futures. Rose leaned forward. But I don't think that's all it would be. I saw how Cole stood up for you Sunday, how he looked at you. That's not a man playing games. He's been gone 1 day and I'm already doubting him. Abigail's voice broke. What kind of person does that make me? Human, scared, protecting yourself from more pain. Rose reached across and squeezed her hand. But sugar, sometimes you've got to risk the pain to get the joy. Your Samuel knew that. He took a chance on you, bringing you out west. That work out? Until he died. But while he lived, were you happy? Abigail thought of those 6 years with Samuel. The laughter, the late-night conversations, the feeling of being seen and valued and loved. Yes. Then maybe it's worth risking again. Maybe Nathaniel Cole's worth the gamble. And if he doesn't come back, then you'll survive, like you've been surviving. But at least you'll know you tried. Rose stood, moving to the shelves. She pulled down flour, salt, dried beans, even some sugar. Take these. No charge. Rose, I can't. You can. Consider it an investment. When you and Cole beat Voss, and you will, I expect you'll remember who stood by you. Abigail's throat closed with gratitude. Thank you. Thank me by not giving up. Your Samuel didn't raise a quitter, and from what I hear, neither did Cole's Margaret, so you both better live up to their faith in you. The ride home felt lighter, despite the rain, the supplies secure under oiled canvas in the wagon bed. Abigail's mind worked through possibilities. Rose was right. Marriage to Nathaniel would solve everything: the foreclosure, the town's judgment protection from Voss. And maybe underneath all the practical reasons there was something else. Something that made her heart beat faster when he was near. Something that felt dangerously like hope. But 2 more days stretched ahead before she'd know if that hope was justified or foolish. She was so lost in thought that she almost didn't see the smoke. It rose black against the gray sky, coming from the direction of her homestead. Abigail's heart stopped, then kicked into overdrive. No, 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 no. She whipped the horses into a gallop wagon, bouncing dangerously over the rutted road. The smoke grew thicker as she approached, and underneath it, a red-orange glow. Her barn was burning. Abigail drove straight into the yard, leaping from the wagon before it fully stopped. Benjamin, Lucy! The cabin door burst open. Her children ran out, smoke-streaked, but alive. Alive. Abigail fell to her knees, gathering them both close, checking for injuries with shaking hands. We're okay, Mama. Ben coughed hard. We got out fast. What happened? Men came. 3 of them. They had torches. Her son's voice shook with rage and fear mixed. They said it was a warning. Said next time it'll be the house. Abigail looked at her barn. Samuel's barn, that he'd built with his own hands, collapsing in flames. The cows bellowed somewhere in the distance, scattered by fear. The chickens were gone, either burned or fled. Everything. They'd lost everything. Did they hurt you? She gripped Ben's shoulders. Either of you? No, ma'am. But Mama... Ben's face crumpled. They said Mr. Cole ain't coming back. Said he's already halfway to California, and we should stop waiting for rescue that won't come. The words landed like blows. Abigail pulled her children close again, holding them, while the barn burned and the rain fell, and her last bit of hope died in the flames. Nathaniel wasn't coming back. Voss was going to win, and she'd been a fool to believe otherwise. Come on. She forced strength into her voice she didn't feel. Let's get inside. We'll figure out what to do. They huddled in the cabin that night, watching through the window as the barn burned down to ash. No neighbors came to help. No one from town rode out to check on them. They were alone. Abigail counted the supplies Rose had given her. Enough food for 2 weeks if they were careful. After that, nothing. The bank would foreclose in 9 days. Even if she could somehow pay them, she had no barn, no livestock, no way to work the land. It was over. She sat by the fire after the children slept, Samuel's letter in one hand, her wedding ring in the other, and made her decision. Tomorrow she'd ride back to town. She'd accept Voss's offer. $300 wasn't enough, but it was something. Enough to get them to Denver, maybe. Start over somewhere nobody knew them. Somewhere the past couldn't follow. It wasn't giving up. It was surviving. And survival was all she had left. She was burning Samuel's letter, couldn't bear to keep it. Couldn't bear to read his faith in her when she'd failed so completely, when hoofbeats thundered into the yard. Abigail grabbed the rifle, heart pounding. Voss's men come to finish the job. But the voice that called out wasn't Voss's hired thugs. Abigail, Abigail, are you all right? She knew that voice. Knew it like her own heartbeat. Nathaniel. He'd come back. Abigail threw open the cabin door, rifle raised, not quite believing what her ears were telling her. But there he was, Nathaniel Cole, dismounting from his stallion in the rain, 6 armed men on horseback behind him. He looked wild hair plastered to his head coat, mud-splattered eyes searching the yard frantically until they found her. Thank God. He strode forward, and before Abigail could process it, his arms were around her, pulling her close. When we saw the smoke from the ridge, I thought, "You came back." The words came out broken against his chest. She was shaking, had been holding herself together through sheer will, and now his solid warmth was making all her careful control crack apart. "Of course I came back. I promised." He pulled away just enough to look at her face, hands framing her cheeks. "Are you hurt? The children?" "We're fine. They burned the barn. Everything else is, we're alive." Nathaniel's jaw clenched so hard she could see the muscle jump. Voss. His men. 3 of them. This afternoon. Abigail was babbling now, words tumbling out. "They said it was a warning. Said next time it's the house. And they said you weren't coming back, that you were already gone to California, and I was a fool for believing." "Hey." Nathaniel's thumb traced her cheekbone, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "I'm here. I came back. And I'm not going anywhere." "Mr. Cole," one of the men called out. "Want us to check the perimeter?" "Do it. And Jack?" Nathaniel turned to a man with graying hair and a weathered face. "Send 2 riders back to the ranch. Tell Henry to bring everyone he can spare. We're setting up a permanent guard here until this is settled." "Yes, sir." The men dispersed efficiently, and Nathaniel guided Abigail back inside the cabin. The warmth hit her, and she realized how cold she'd gotten standing in the rain. Her teeth started chattering. "Ben, Lucy!" Nathaniel called up to the loft. 2 small faces appeared over the edge. Lucy squealed and scrambled down the ladder so fast she nearly fell. Nathaniel caught her, swinging her up into his arms. "You came back. You came back." She wrapped her arms around his neck, squeezing tight. "Told you I would, little one." He held her close, and Abigail saw something in his face shift, a wall crumbling that had maybe been up since Margaret died. Ben descended more slowly, trying to maintain dignity, but his eyes were bright with relief. "You're really here." "I'm really here, and I'm not leaving again." "They burned the barn." Ben's voice cracked. "Papa's barn. The one he built." Nathaniel set Lucy down and crouched to meet the boy's eyes. "I know, and we'll build you a new one. Bigger, better. But right now I need you to be brave a little longer. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir." "Good man." Nathaniel squeezed his shoulder, then stood, his attention returning to Abigail. "You're soaked through. Change into dry clothes. I need to talk to my men, then we need to talk. All of us." Abigail nodded numb and retreated to the bedroom. Her hands shook as she peeled off her wet dress, fumbling with buttons. She could hear Nathaniel's voice through the door, low and authoritative, giving orders to his men. The sound should have made her angry, him taking charge in her home without asking. Instead, it made her want to cry with relief. She'd been alone so long, carrying everything by herself, and now someone else was helping shoulder the weight. When she emerged in dry clothes, the cabin had transformed. One of Nathaniel's men was building up the fire, another was making coffee, a third was checking the windows and door, reinforcing the bar. Nathaniel stood in the center of it all, water dripping from his coat, giving orders with quiet efficiency. "Jack, I want men posted in shifts through the night, 2 at a time no less. Anyone approaches who's not one of ours, you wake me immediately." "Understood." "And send word to Judge Morrison. Tell him what happened here tonight. Tell him I'm prepared to swear out warrants for arson and attempted murder against Clayton Voss. Judge won't go against Voss without rock-solid proof, boss. You know that." "Then we'll get him proof." Nathaniel's voice went cold. "One way or another, this ends." The men filed out, leaving just the 4 of them, Abigail, Nathaniel, and her 2 children. The silence felt thick, weighted with everything unspoken. "You should sit." Nathaniel gestured to the chairs by the fire. "All of you." They sat, Lucy climbing immediately into Abigail's lap, Ben perched on the edge of his chair, like he might need to run at any moment. Nathaniel remained standing, pacing his energy, too restless for sitting. "I went to my ranch. Gathered my men, my lawyers, all the proof I've collected on Voss over the years." He stopped facing them. Documents showing he's been systematically buying up land through fraud and intimidation. Testimony from homesteaders he forced out. Records of bribes paid to the sheriff and town council. And most importantly, proof that he paid Doc Morrison to poison at least 6 men, including your husband Abigail. Her breath caught. You can prove it. I can prove it. Morrison kept records. Ledgers documenting every payment Voss made, every victim, every dose. The fool thought it would protect him if Voss ever turned on him. Instead, it's going to hang them both. Then we go to the judge. There's a problem. Nathaniel ran a hand through his wet hair. Morrison's dead. Found him in his office this morning when I went looking for the ledgers. Bullet to the head. Made to look like suicide, but it wasn't. Voss tied up his loose end. Dear God. Abigail's arms tightened around Lucy. What does that mean for us? It means Voss knows I have the ledgers, knows his time's running out, which makes him desperate. And desperate men do desperate things. Nathaniel's eyes met hers. Like burning barns, like threatening children, like making sure you have no choice but to sell to him. I was going to. The confession burst out before Abigail could stop it. Before you came back, I'd decided. Tomorrow, I was going to town to accept his offer. $300 for everything. I was going to take it and leave. Something flickered across Nathaniel's face. Pain, maybe. Or disappointment. I don't blame you. You were doing what you had to do to protect them. But you came back. Her voice broke. You actually came back. I told you I would. He said it simple, like keeping promises was just what a man did. But Abigail, we need to talk about what happens next, because Voss isn't going to stop. Tonight was a warning. Next time... He glanced at the children. Next time could be worse. So what do we do? Nathaniel took a breath, squared his shoulders. You marry me. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Abigail stared at him, certain she'd misheard. What? You heard me. We get married. Tonight if possible. Tomorrow at the latest. You can't be serious. I'm dead serious. Think about it right now, you're vulnerable. A widow with no protection. Land Voss can steal, children he can threaten. But if you're my wife, everything changes. Your land becomes mine to defend. Your children become mine to protect. And Voss would have to go through me and every man I employ to get to you. That's not a reason to get married. Abigail's heart was pounding so hard she could barely think. That's a business arrangement. It's survival, and it's smart. It's insane. Is it? Nathaniel crouched in front of her chair, bringing himself to eye level. Tell me another way to keep you safe. Tell me how else to stop Voss from burning down this house with you and your children inside. We could go to the marshal, the territorial governor, someone with authority. That takes time. Time you don't have. The bank forecloses in 9 days. Voss's men already tried to kill you once tonight. How long before they try again? Abigail's mind raced, looking for another option. Any option. I could accept Voss's offer. Take the money and leave like I planned. And go where Denver Cheyenne. You think he won't follow. You think he'll let you live knowing what you know about Morrison and Samuel. Nathaniel's voice was gentle, but implacable. The only way you survive this is with protection he can't overcome. That means me. That means marriage. I won't marry you just because you feel obligated. This isn't about obligation. Something in his voice made her look up, really look at him. His blue eyes held hers, intense and honest. I told you we needed to talk when I got back, about something permanent. This is what I meant. You can't possibly. We barely know each other. I know you're brave. I know you saved my life when it would have been easier to let me die. I know you love your children fierce enough to face down an entire town. I know you make terrible coffee, but your biscuits are the best I've ever had. I know you read to your kids every night from that Shakespeare book your husband gave you. And I know. His voice dropped lower, I know when I thought you might be hurt tonight when I saw that smoke. I've never been more terrified in my life. Not even when Margaret was dying. Because I've already lost everything once, and the thought of losing you and them before I even had a chance." He stopped breathing hard, like the confession had cost him something. Abigail couldn't breathe. "Nathaniel! Mama!" Lucy's small voice cut through. "Does this mean Mr. Nathaniel's gonna be our papa?" The question hung there impossibly large. Nathaniel's hand found Abigail's fingers threading through hers. "Only if your mama says yes." "But Lucy, I want you to know if she does say yes, I won't try to replace your papa. I can't. But I can promise to protect you and love you, and be the kind of man your papa would want watching over his family. Papa would like you." Lucy said it with childhood certainty. "He told me once before he got real sick that Mama would need someone strong after he was gone. Someone brave. That's you." Tears streamed down Abigail's face, now hot and unstoppable. Samuel's letter had said the same thing. Let someone in. Be brave enough to love again. "Ben." She looked at her son. "What do you think?" Her boy's face was serious, considering. "I think Mr. Cole's right that we need protection. And I think—" He paused, choosing words carefully. "I think he makes you smile again, Mama. And I think Papa would want that." "This is crazy!" Abigail said it to the room, to herself, to God maybe. "We've known each other less than 2 weeks. My parents met on a Wednesday and married on Saturday." Nathaniel countered. "Had 40 good years together before Pa died. Time doesn't matter as much as fit. And we fit Abigail. You know we do. Did they?" She thought of the past week, how naturally he'd folded into their life, fixing things, playing with the children, sitting by the fire, talking until late. How his presence had made the cabin feel less like a prison of grief and more like a home. How her heart had cracked open wider each day, letting in light she'd thought was gone forever. "What if it doesn't work?" Her voice came out small. "What if we marry, and then realize we've made a terrible mistake? Then we deal with it, together, like partners." His thumb stroked across her knuckles. "I'm not promising you perfect, Abigail. I'm promising you real. Hard work and arguments, and probably plenty of times when you want to throttle me. But also safety, protection. A chance for your kids to grow up without fear. And maybe, if we're lucky, something more." "Something more." She repeated the words, testing them. "I cared about Margaret, loved her the best I could at 23, when I didn't know what love really meant. And when she died, I thought that was it. One chance at happiness gone." He squeezed her hand. "But then I woke up in your cabin with you pressing a cloth to my head, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 4 years. Hope. And every day since that hope's gotten stronger. So yes, something more. If you're willing to take a chance on it." Abigail looked at her children. Ben nodded slowly. Lucy beamed like Christmas morning. She looked at the cabin around them. Samuel's cabin, where she'd loved and lost and learned to survive. She thought of his letter, his last wish for her to be brave, and she made her choice. "All right." The words came out steadier than she felt. "I'll marry you." Lucy squealed. Ben's face split into a rare smile, and Nathaniel's eyes went bright with something that looked dangerously like joy. "You mean it. I mean it. But Nathaniel, I need you to understand something." She freed her hand from his needing space to say this right. "I'm doing this partly for protection, yes. Partly for my children, but also because when you rode into that yard tonight, I've never been so relieved to see anyone in my entire life. And that terrifies me. Because I've already buried one husband, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to bury another." "You won't have to." He said it fierce. "I'm going to grow old and ornery and drive you crazy for decades. That's a promise." "You can't promise that. Nobody can." "Then I promise to fight like hell to keep it true. That good enough?" It wasn't. But it was all anyone could offer, so Abigail nodded. Good enough. Nathaniel stood suddenly all business. Jack. He called out the door. One of his men appeared immediately. Ride to town, wake up Reverend Webb. Tell him we need him here at dawn to perform a wedding. Sir, it's near midnight. I don't care if it's the middle of the night. We're doing this before Voss has a chance to stop it. And Jack, bring witnesses. Good people. Rose McCarty from the dry goods store. Anyone else you can find who'll stand with us. Yes, sir. Jack disappeared into the darkness. Abigail stood on shaky legs. Dawn, that's only a few hours. That's the point. We do this fast before you change your mind, or Voss makes another move. Nathaniel caught her hand again. Cold feet already. Frozen solid. But she managed a weak smile. What do I need to do? Just show up. Everything else I'll handle. That easy. That easy. He pulled her close, and for a moment they just stood there, two broken people taking a leap of faith together. Try to get some sleep. Morning's coming fast. But sleep was impossible. Abigail lay in her bed, listening to Nathaniel's men moving around outside, setting up watch posts. Through the thin wall, she could hear Nathaniel in the front room, his deep voice giving orders, making plans, taking charge of everything. She should resent it, should fight to maintain control of her own life. Instead, she felt only relief at sharing the burden. Was that weakness or wisdom? She didn't know anymore. Mama! Lucy appeared in the doorway, her wooden horse clutched to her chest. Can't sleep. Me neither, baby. Come here. Lucy climbed into bed, snuggling close. Are you scared? Terrified. But you're still gonna marry him. Yes. Good. Lucy yawned. I like Mr. Nathaniel. He tells good stories. And he doesn't treat me like I'm stupid because I'm little. Abigail kissed her daughter's hair, breathing in the familiar scent of childhood soap and fresh air and innocence. Your papa would have liked him too. I know, Papa told me. What do you mean? I dreamed about him. Tonight while you were outside. He came and sat on my bed and told me not to be scared of the fire. Said a new papa was coming who'd keep us safe. And then Mr. Nathaniel came just like Papa said. Abigail's throat closed. 6-year-old imagination. Or something more. Did it matter? What else did Papa say? That he loves us, and that he's not mad about Mr. Nathaniel. That Mama deserves to be happy. Lucy's eyes were already closing, exhaustion taking over. And that the angels are taking good care of him. So we don't gotta worry. Don't have to worry? Abigail corrected automatically, but her voice was thick with tears. Don't have to worry. Lucy mumbled, already halfway to sleep. Abigail held her daughter and cried silently, grieving Samuel all over again, grateful for him all over again, terrified of dishonoring his memory, and desperate to live up to his faith in her all at once. Dawn came gray and cold, the rain finally stopping, but leaving everything mud-soaked and dreary. Abigail rose dressed in her only good dress, the dark blue calico she'd worn to Samuel's funeral. It felt wrong wearing a funeral dress to a wedding, but it was all she had. She braided her hair, pinned it up, tried to see herself in the cracked mirror as a bride instead of a widow. Failed. You look beautiful. Nathaniel's voice made her turn. He stood in the bedroom doorway, cleaned up, wearing a fresh shirt someone must have brought from his ranch. His eyes were warm as they took her in. Blue's your color. It's a funeral dress. It's the dress you're wearing when you become my wife. That makes it perfect. You're a smooth talker, Nathaniel Cole. Only when I mean it. He stepped into the room holding something out. A ring, simple gold, worn smooth with age. This was Margaret's. She'd want you to have it. Abigail took it with trembling hands. Are you sure? I'm sure. She believed in second chances, in life going on. This you wearing her ring, it's right. I'll wear it on my right hand. Abigail decided suddenly. Samuel's ring stays on my left, at least for now, until I'm ready to move it. That's fair. Nathaniel nodded. Take all the time you need. A commotion outside announced arrivals. Through the window, Abigail saw Reverend Webb dismounting from his horse, looking exhausted and confused. Behind him, Rose McCarty climbed down from a wagon, her face determined. And to Abigail's shock, Henry Cole, Nathaniel's father, was there too, his weathered face breaking into a smile when he saw his son. Your father came. Course he did. I sent word yesterday that I'd met someone. Someone special. Nathaniel's hand found hers. You ready? No. But let's do it anyway. They gathered in the cabin's main room, crowded and warm with bodies. Ben stood on one side, Lucy on the other, both dressed in their Sunday best. Rose beamed from her spot by the fire. Henry Cole's eyes were suspiciously bright, and Reverend Webb, despite obvious reluctance, opened his Bible with shaking hands. We are gathered here, he began. Skip the preamble, Reverend. Nathaniel interrupted. Just the vows, quick and legal. Webb's mouth thinned in disapproval, but he obeyed. Do you, Nathaniel James Cole, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. Nathaniel said it clear and strong, no hesitation. And do you, Abigail Elizabeth Thornton, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? Abigail opened her mouth. No words came. Fear closed her throat. Fear of betraying Samuel. Fear of risking her heart again. Fear of everything this moment represented. Nathaniel's hand squeezed hers. Not pressure, just presence, just reminder that she wasn't alone anymore. I do. She whispered it, barely audible. The ring? Nathaniel slipped Margaret's ring onto Abigail's right hand. It fit perfectly, like it was meant to be there. By the authority vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Webb closed his Bible with a snap. May God have mercy on your souls. Not the warmest blessing, but it would do. You may kiss the bride. Webb added perfunctory. Nathaniel turned to Abigail, his eyes asking permission. She nodded just barely, and he leaned in. The kiss was brief, chaste, appropriate for witnesses. But there was something in it, promise maybe, or hope, that made Abigail's heart stutter. Lucy cheered. Ben clapped. Rose wiped her eyes. And Henry Cole pulled his son into a crushing hug. About damn time you came back to the living boy. Language pa. But Nathaniel was grinning. Really grinning, and Abigail realized she'd never seen him look truly happy until this moment. Rose swept Abigail into her own embrace. You brave girl, you did it. Did I do the right thing? Abigail whispered against the older woman's shoulder. Time will tell, sugar. But you're alive, your kids are safe, and you've got a man who looks at you like you hung the moon. That's more than most of us get. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Henry produced a marriage certificate signed by everyone present. Jack filed it immediately with the county clerk, making it official before Voss could interfere. And Nathaniel's men transformed the cabin into a fortified position, armed guards posted at every approach. By noon, word had spread through Clearwater Valley. The widow Thornton had married Nathaniel Cole. Her land was now his to defend, and Clayton Voss's carefully laid plans had just collapsed. The banker himself rode up at sunset, 3 men behind him, face purple with rage. Cole! He bellowed from the property line, careful not to cross onto the land. I know you're in there. Nathaniel stepped out onto the porch. Abigail beside him, his arm around her waist, in clear possession. Something I can help you with, Voss. You can't do this. You can't just marry her and steal my... He stopped, catching himself. Steal your what? Nathaniel's voice went cold. This isn't your land. Never was. Never will be. And now it's protected by coal money and coal guns. So unless you've got legal business here, I suggest you turn around and ride back to whatever hole you crawled out of. The foreclosure was paid off this morning, in full, with interest. Nathaniel smiled all teeth and no warmth. My wife's debts are my debts, and I've got plenty of money to cover them. Voss's face went from purple to white. You're making a mistake, Cole, a big one. The only mistake would be threatening my wife on my property. Now you've got 10 seconds to leave before my men make you leave. Your choice. For a long moment Voss just stared, his eyes promising murder. Then he wheeled his horse and galloped away, his men scrambling to follow. When they were gone, Nathaniel let out a long breath. That's not over. You know that. I know. Abigail leaned against him, allowing herself one moment of weakness. What do we do now? Now we finish this, once and for all. The attack came 3 nights later. Abigail woke to shouting and gunfire. She was out of bed before conscious thought registered, grabbing the rifle Nathaniel had insisted she keep loaded by the bedside. Beside her the bed was empty, Nathaniel already gone, already defending. Benjamin, Lucy! She ran for the ladder to the loft. Get down here now! Her children scrambled down, both wide-eyed with terror. Abigail herded them into the corner behind the big trunk Samuel had built, the one place in the cabin that had double walls. Stay here. Don't move. Don't make a sound. She pressed the rifle into Ben's hands. If anyone comes through that door who's not me or Nathaniel, you shoot first and ask questions later. Understand? Yes, ma'am. Ben's voice shook, but his hands were steady on the gun. Abigail grabbed Samuel's old pistol from the drawer, checked the load, and moved to the window. Outside, muzzle flashes lit up the darkness. She counted at least 8 attackers, maybe more, trying to breach the perimeter Nathaniel's men had established. Through the chaos, she spotted Nathaniel taking cover behind the well, returning fire with deadly precision. Jack was on the barn roof, the new barn they'd started building just yesterday, picking off attackers one by one. Henry Cole fought from the tree line, his old Sharps rifle booming like thunder. Come on, you bastards, Henry's voice carried across the yard. I was killing men before your daddies were born. A window shattered. Glass exploded inward. Abigail hit the floor rolling, coming up with the pistol aimed at the opening. A man started climbing through. She didn't recognize him. Didn't need to. She fired. He screamed and fell back, clutching his shoulder. 2 more shots answered from outside, and the window went quiet. Abigail! Nathaniel's voice frantic. Are you hit? I'm fine. Children are safe. Stay down. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The attackers had come hard and fast, clearly expecting to overwhelm through sheer numbers. They hadn't counted on Nathaniel's men being veterans, hardened ranch hands who'd fought Indians and outlaws and knew how to defend ground worth holding. Slowly, the gunfire decreased, then stopped. Silence fell, broken only by groaning from wounded men and the nervous whickering of horses. Hold your fire, Nathaniel called out. Anyone still standing, throw down your weapons and come out with your hands up. You've got 10 seconds. 5 men stumbled into the moonlight, hands raised, blood-spattered, and defeated. 2 of Nathaniel's men moved forward to secure them, binding their hands with quick efficiency. Nathaniel appeared in the doorway, his shirt torn and blood-streaked. Abigail was across the room before she could think, hands running over him, frantically searching for wounds. It's not mine. He caught her hands, stilling them. Most of it's not mine. I'm all right. Most of it grazed my arm. Nothing serious. He pulled her close, holding tight. The children. Behind the trunk. Ben, Lucy, you can come out now. Her children emerged, pale but unharmed. Nathaniel released Abigail long enough to crouch and check them both over his hands, gentle, despite the violence they'd just committed. You 2 were very brave. Mama shot a man. Lucy's voice was small, awed. Your mama's the bravest woman I know. Nathaniel stood, keeping one hand on Abigail's waist. Jack, casualties. 2 wounded on our side, nothing fatal. 3 dead among the attackers. 5 captured, at least 4 ran off. Jack appeared in the doorway, reloading his rifle. Boss, one of the prisoners is talking. Says Voss paid them 500 each to kill you and burn the place to the ground. Said it was supposed to look like a robbery gone wrong. Where's Voss now? Still in town, supposedly. Got himself a nice alibi, was playing cards at the saloon with the mayor and half the town council when this went down. Nathaniel's jaw clenched. Convenient. Bring me the one who's talking. They dragged him in minutes later, a young man couldn't be more than 25, bleeding from a leg wound and shaking with fear. Nathaniel stood over him, arms crossed, face carved from ice. What's your name? To Tommy. Tommy Briggs. Well, Tommy Briggs, you just tried to murder my wife and children. Give me one reason I shouldn't hang you from that oak tree right now. I didn't know Voss said it was just a rancher dispute, said you'd stolen his land and he wanted it back. Tommy's words tumbled over each other. He didn't say nothing about women and kids being here. You thought you'd just kill a man in his sleep and that would be fine. I needed the money. My ma's sick and the doctor won't treat her without payment, and Voss said... He stopped, realizing too late what he'd revealed. The doctor won't treat her. Nathaniel repeated slowly. Because Voss told him not to, unless you did what he wanted. Tommy's silence was confirmation enough. How many others? Nathaniel's voice went deadly quiet. How many men in this valley is Voss controlling the same way, through family, through debt, through fear? I don't know, a lot. Most of us don't want to do it, Mr. Cole, but what choice do we got? He owns the bank, the doctor, half the shops. If you cross him, you lose everything. Nathaniel turned to Jack. Take him to the jail, all of them. Tell Sheriff Wade we've got signed confessions ready to go. Tell him if he doesn't want to file charges, I'll go over his head straight to the territorial marshal. Wade won't cross Voss. Then we'll see how brave he is when 5 prisoners are willing to testify against his boss. Nathaniel's smile was sharp as a knife. Sometimes the only way to win against men like Voss is to hit them in public where they can't hide behind money and threats. After the prisoners were hauled away and the wounded were being tended, Abigail finally allowed herself to shake. She sat in the rocking chair Samuel had made, arms wrapped around herself, while Nathaniel cleaned the blood from his arm, and Henry made coffee like nothing unusual had happened. You did good tonight, girl. Henry handed her a cup. Kept your head, protected the kids. Samuel would be proud. I killed a man. The words came out flat. Maybe. I don't know if he died. He didn't. Shoulder wound. Ran off with the others. Henry sipped his own coffee. But even if you had killed him, you did what needed doing. That's what survival looks like out here. I wanted to kill him. Abigail's voice dropped to a whisper. When he came through that window, I didn't think. I just wanted him dead for threatening my children. What does that make me? Human. Nathaniel finished bandaging his arm and came to crouch beside her chair. You think I didn't want to kill every man who attacked my family tonight? You think I wasn't praying my aim was true? That's not wrong, Abigail. That's love. Violent, fierce, protective love. Is this what our life is now? Waiting for the next attack, sleeping with guns under our pillows? No. Nathaniel took her free hand. This ends tomorrow. I'm done playing defense. Time to take the fight to Voss. How? By doing what he's always feared most, bringing everything he's done into the light where everyone can see it. Morning came with a plan. Nathaniel dressed in his finest suit, black coat, white shirt, string tie. He looked every inch the wealthy rancher, the man of influence and power. Abigail watched him transform from the warm husband who'd held her through the night into someone harder, colder, dangerous. I'm riding to town, he announced to the assembled men in the yard. Jack Henry and 4 others come with me. The rest stay here and guard my family. Anyone tries to get to them, you know what to do. Nathaniel. Abigail caught his arm. Be careful. Careful's done. He kissed her forehead quick and firm. Time for justice. They rode out at dawn, 7 men on horseback, armed and determined. Abigail watched until they disappeared over the ridge, then gathered her children close. Is Mr. Nathaniel gonna kill Mr. Voss? Lucy asked with childhood bluntness. I don't know, baby. I hope he does. Ben's voice was hard. For Papa. For us. Abigail had no answer to that, so she just held them both and prayed. In Clearwater, Nathaniel rode straight to the courthouse where Judge Morrison held court. He dismounted in front of a gathering crowd. Word of the night's attack had already spread through town and mounted the steps with his men flanking him. I'm here to file charges against Clayton Voss for murder, attempted murder, arson, fraud, and conspiracy. His voice carried across the square. And I've got enough evidence to hang him twice over. Sheriff Wade appeared sweating despite the cool morning. Now, Cole, let's not be hasty. Hasty. Nathaniel turned on him. Voss sent 8 men to murder my family last night. 5 are in your jail right now. Or they should be, if you haven't let them go. They're there. Wade's hand moved toward his gun. But you can't prove Voss sent them. I've got signed confessions. I've got Morrison's ledgers documenting every crime Voss has committed for the past decade. And I've got Tommy Briggs's testimony that Voss is using sick family members as leverage to force men into committing crimes. Nathaniel's voice rose, addressing the crowd now. How many of you are being blackmailed? How many of you have done things you're ashamed of because Voss threatened your families? How many of you have lost land, lost livelihood, lost loved ones to this man's greed? Silence. Then slowly hands began to rise. 1, 2, 5, a dozen, more. Robert Klein stepped forward, the store owner who'd refused to sell to Abigail. He forced me to turn away customers, said if I didn't, he'd foreclose on my loan and my wife would starve. Martha Hayes, the mayor's wife, her face tight with shame. He paid my husband to vote against safety regulations at the mine. 20 men died in that collapse. My husband knew it was coming and did nothing because Voss owned him. One by one they came forward, confessions pouring out like poison being drained from a wound, years of intimidation, blackmail, murder disguised as accident or illness. Voss had woven a web of fear through the entire valley, and Nathaniel had just cut the first strand. Where is he? Nathaniel demanded. Where's Voss? Bank. Sheriff Wade's voice was defeated. He's at the bank. The crowd moved as one Nathaniel at its head. They flooded down Main Street past shops and houses toward the solid brick building that represented Voss's power. The Wyoming Cattleman's Bank with Voss's name gilded on the window. Nathaniel didn't knock. He kicked the door open and walked in like he owned the place. Behind him, the crowd pressed close, filling the lobby, the weight of their collective anger making the walls feel too small. Clayton Voss sat behind his massive desk, papers spread before him, looking every inch the respectable banker. When he saw Nathaniel, his expression barely flickered. Mr. Cole, what an unexpected visit. It's over, Voss. Nathaniel approached the desk slowly. The territorial marshal is riding in as we speak. Judge Morrison has seen the evidence. You're done. Evidence? Voss leaned back in his leather chair. What evidence? Some ledgers you claim came from a dead doctor. Confessions from hired thugs trying to save their own necks. You think that will stand up in court? I think when Tommy Briggs testifies that you threatened his dying mother, and when Klein testifies that you forced him to discriminate, and when Martha Hayes testifies that her husband took bribes that killed 20 minors, yes, I think it'll stand up just fine. My lawyer will tear them apart. Maybe. But here's the thing, Voss. Nathaniel leaned on the desk, getting close. You've spent years building this empire on fear, making people too scared to speak up, too scared to fight back. But fear only works when people are alone, when they think they're the only ones suffering. You miscalculated when you came after my wife, because in attacking her, you showed everyone else what you really are. And now they're not alone anymore. Now they've got each other. And me. And all my money and influence standing between you and them. Voss's composure cracked slightly. You can't prove I ordered any attacks. 5 men in jail say otherwise. And when the marshal gets here in about... Nathaniel pulled out his pocket watch. 10 minutes, you're going to be joining them. For the first time, real fear showed on Voss's face. His hand moved toward the desk drawer, going for a gun, probably, but Jack was faster. The foreman had his Winchester leveled before Voss's fingers touched the handle. I wouldn't. Jack's voice was calm as Sunday morning. I'm deaf, remember. Sometimes I don't hear when people surrender. Accidents happen. Voss's hand retreated slowly. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. Nathaniel straightened. See, even if somehow you wiggle out of the criminal charges, you've still lost. Because I'm buying up every loan you hold, every mortgage, every debt. I'm offering people fair terms, real repayment plans, reasonable interest forgiveness for those who need it. Your empire isn't built on land, Voss. It's built on debt and fear, and I just took both away. You can't afford... I can afford anything I want. Coal Ranch is worth more than your entire operation 3 times over. I could buy and sell you before breakfast and still have money for eggs. Nathaniel's smile was cold. But I'm not going to buy you out. I'm going to watch you hang. For Samuel Thornton. For James McCarty. For every man you poisoned, every family you destroyed, every life you ruined for profit. The sound of horses outside announced the marshal's arrival. Nathaniel stepped back, allowing federal law to take over. Marshal Cooper walked in with 2 deputies, warrant in hand. Clayton Voss, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and corruption of public officials. You have the right to... I know my rights. Voss stood slowly, straightening his jacket. Even now, he tried to maintain dignity. This is a mistake, Marshal. Mr. Cole has orchestrated a vendetta against me based on lies, and... Save it for the judge. Cooper slapped irons on Voss's wrists. We've got enough evidence to try you 10 times over, and between you and me, I hope they hang you slow. As they dragged Voss out, he locked eyes with Nathaniel one last time. You think you've won, but men like me, we always come back. Men like you end up in the ground, Nathaniel replied, or dancing at the end of a rope. Either way, you're finished. The trial happened fast, just 3 weeks later. Judge Morrison, eager to prove his own court wasn't corrupt, pushed it through with unprecedented speed. The evidence was overwhelming. Morrison's ledgers, Tommy Briggs's testimony, confession after confession from people Voss had terrorized. Abigail sat in the courtroom gallery with Nathaniel beside her, Ben on her other side, Lucy on her lap. She watched as the jury filed back in after just 2 hours of deliberation. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Samuel Thornton, how do you find guilty? On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of James McCarty, guilty. The list went on. 6 counts of murder, 14 counts of fraud, 23 counts of corruption and intimidation, all guilty. When Judge Morrison pronounced sentence death by hanging, Voss's face finally collapsed. The mask of respectability crumbled, revealing the desperate, terrified man beneath. You'll pay for this, Cole, he screamed as deputies dragged him away. All of you, you'll all pay. We already paid. Abigail's voice was quiet, but Nathaniel heard her. We paid with our grief, our fear, our loved ones' lives. Now it's your turn. Outside the courthouse, the crowd that had gathered erupted in cheers. People who'd been silenced for years were finally free. The weight that had hung over Clearwater Valley for a decade had lifted. Rose McCarty found Abigail and pulled her into a fierce hug. You did it, girl. You stood up and fought back and won. We all won. Abigail looked around at the faces Klein Webb, Martha Hayes, Tommy Briggs. All of them wounded by Voss's greed, all of them healing now. We did it together. The hanging was set for 2 weeks later. Nathaniel offered to go without Abigail to spare her the sight, but she refused. "I need to see it end," she said it firm. "For Samuel, for myself. I need to know he's really gone." So they went together, the whole family, even Lucy, though Abigail kept the girl's face turned away at the crucial moment. Ben watched his young face hard as stone as the trap dropped, and Clayton Voss paid for his crimes with his life. Abigail felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy, no sense of justice served. Just emptiness where rage and fear had been. Samuel was still dead. The years of grief couldn't be undone. But at least now his death meant something. His murder had been exposed. His killer punished, his family protected. "You all right?" Nathaniel's arm came around her waist, steady and warm. "I will be." She leaned into him, letting his strength supplement her own. Eventually. That night, lying in bed in their new home, Nathaniel had moved them to Cole Ranch the week after the wedding, into a house big enough for all of them. Abigail finally allowed herself to cry. Not for Samuel, not for fear, but for relief, for release, for the ending of a chapter that had felt like it would never close. Nathaniel held her through it, saying nothing, just being present. When the tears finally stopped, Abigail rolled to face him in the darkness. "Thank you." "For what?" "For coming back, for fighting, for giving me and my children a chance at a real life again. You gave me the same thing." His hand came up to cup her cheek. "I was dead long before you found me in that barn. You brought me back to life." "We saved each other then." "Yeah, we did." He kissed her forehead gentle. "You ready to talk about what comes next?" "What do you mean?" "I mean we got married for protection, for survival. But Abigail, I don't want this to just be a business arrangement. I want a real marriage, real partnership, real everything, if you're willing." Abigail's heart stuttered. They'd been married a month now, sleeping in the same bed, but maintaining careful distance. Respectful, proper, giving each other space to adjust. But Nathaniel was right, they couldn't stay in this limbo forever. "I'm scared." She admitted it quietly. "Scared of dishonoring Samuel's memory. Scared of caring about you too much and losing you. Scared that I don't know how to be a wife to someone I didn't spend years courting first. I'm scared too. Scared I'll mess this up. Scared I won't be the father Ben and Lucy need. Scared I'll let you down." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "But I'm more scared of wasting this second chance. Of being too afraid to really live." "What did Margaret's letter say about not burying yourself with her?" "She said the world needs men who care, who fight for what's right, who protect the weak." His voice roughened. "And she said to promise her I'd be happy again someday. I think with you I could keep that promise." Abigail thought of Samuel's letter, its final words. Be brave enough to take chances, to trust again, to let someone in. "All right," she said it soft. "Let's try. Real marriage, real partnership. No more holding back out of fear." "You sure?" Instead of answering, Abigail kissed him. Really kissed him. Not the brief press of lips from their wedding, but something deeper. Something that tasted like hope and healing and new beginnings. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathaniel's eyes were bright in the darkness. "That's a yes, then." "That's a yes." He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring. And for the first time since Samuel died, Abigail felt truly alive. Not just surviving, but living. Ready to build something new on the foundation of what had been lost. Months passed. Spring turned to summer. The new barn rose on the old Thornton homestead, bigger and better than Samuel's had been. They hired a hand to work the land, keeping it productive while living primarily at Cole Ranch. Ben started learning ranching from Henry, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. Lucy bloomed in the larger house, her nightmares finally stopping completely. And Abigail learned to be happy again. Slowly, carefully, but genuinely. She still wore Samuel's ring on her left hand, but Margaret's ring on her right felt less like obligation and more like honor. Two women who'd loved these men, giving their blessing for the love that came after. One evening in late summer, Abigail stood on the porch watching sunset paint the mountains gold. Nathaniel came up behind her, arms wrapping around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about Samuel, Margaret, how they'd feel about all this?" And I think they'd be proud of us for being brave enough to love again, of the life we're building for the children. She turned in his arms. I think they'd be happy we found each other. I think you're right. He kissed her temple. You know what today is. Know what? 6 months since I stumbled into your barn half dead and changed both our lives forever. Abigail laughed. You mean 6 months since I saved your sorry hide and got dragged into your mess? That too. He grinned. Best mistake I ever made, getting thrown by that horse. You're impossible. And you love me anyway. Did she? Abigail realized with a start that yes, she did. Somewhere between the fighting and the fear and the building of a life together, love had grown. Different from what she'd felt for Samuel, less innocent, more complicated, tempered by loss and hardened by survival. But real, true, worth having. Yeah, she said it simple. I do. Good. Nathaniel's arms tightened around her. Because I love you too. You and those kids. My whole ready-made family. From inside the house, Lucy's laughter rang out, followed by Ben's deeper chuckle and Henry's gruff voice telling some tall tale. The sounds of home, of family, of life going on despite everything. Abigail leaned back against her husband not just for protection, but for real, and watched the sunset over Wyoming territory. Behind them lay grief and loss and pain that would never fully heal. Ahead lay uncertainty and challenges and all the normal struggles of life. But right now, in this moment, they had each other. They had survived, they had won, and that was enough. Come on. Nathaniel tugged her toward the door. Henry's burning dinner again, and if we don't intervene, we'll be eating charcoal. Some things never change. Abigail followed him inside into warmth and light and laughter. Some things never changed, but some things did. And sometimes, if you were brave enough to take the chance, strong enough to survive the pain, stubborn enough to keep fighting, sometimes broken things could be mended. Broken people could heal, and broken hearts could love again. Not despite the past, but because of it. Samuel and Margaret's love hadn't ended. It had transformed, making space for new love to grow in soil enriched by their memory. And in a small Wyoming valley, where winter had nearly claimed everything, spring had finally truly come at last.